Good morning and welcome to today's Dr. Anyoha's presentation. Today I'm going to be talking about effects of separating children from their caregiver. As a pediatrician who has been practiced for over 25 years and as a pediatrician interested in infant mental health, children's mental health and development, and also the current crisis going on in the world, wars and current anxiety, especially on the verge of change of government in the United States and the wars going on in all over the world. This topic is what I'm talking about, which is the separation of children from caregivers. What happens when children are separated from caregivers? It's very important to me as a pediatrician. This is what I'm going to be talking about today. I think everybody should be interested in this topic because of the current crisis going on in the whole world. Wars in Ukraine, wars in Palestine and Israel, Gaza, and of course the impending change of government in the United States and the threat of deporting immigrants. So it's always good to revisit this topic of what effect does separation have in the mental health of children, infants, and youth. So let's jump into this topic. When children are separated from parents or primary caregiver, there's a vacuum in their life. They suffer psychological trauma. They have a lot of adversities and psychological trauma. Separation can occur under a host of reasons. A separation could be temporary separation or permanent separation. A temporary, of course, will range for a day, 2 days, to months, years. A permanent separation is permanent. So a host of reasons can cause separation between children and their primary caregiver. Some of them are listed here. Divorce, when there is custody battle, and a child is separated from one of the parents. Death of a caregiver in a family is another obvious cause of separation. Incarceration, a caregiver in jail, obviously one of the causes of separation between children and their caregivers. Infirmity, when a child is separated from their parents because a parent is sick, either physical problems or mental challenges, health challenges. Of course, immigration and citizenship could also be a reason why children are separated from their family or children are separated from their caregivers. As we mentioned, there's war going on right now in some parts of the world like Ukraine, Palestine, and other places. And of course, hurricane, natural disaster could be another cause of separation between children and their caregivers. So these are the things that could cause separation between children and their caregivers, primary caregivers. By that I mean mothers, fathers, foster mothers, foster fathers, surrogates, and so on and so forth. Whoever is caring for a child is a primary caregiver. And separating that child from the primary caregiver could result in adversities and psychological trauma. So what happens when a child is separated from their primary caregiver? Now, if you can imagine what a child will be experiencing, of course, it depends on the age of the child. It could be newborn, infant, toddler, school-age child, school-age children, it could be teenager, youths, even young adults. What is going on through their minds, if you can imagine that? So they could be searching in their brain to figure out where this adult in their life has gone through. They could be confused. In other words, they can't make any judgment. They're confused. Perhaps they're expecting that this loving adult who was taking care of them, the parent, is going to come back, or maybe a day, 2 days, 3 days. So the child is confused and trying to reason this over and over again. So there's different scenarios which I could imagine would be playing out in the mind of a child who has been separated from their primary caregiver or from their parents. So a child is searching for an answer because of this loss or separation from dad or primary caregiver, because they don't have any solution, they don't have any answers, so they're searching in their mind. And of course, it depends on the age. A newborn, if a newborn is separated from their caregivers, they're going to have different outcomes, obviously, compared to an infant, 6 months old or 12 months old, who are beginning to bond and form attachment via primary caregivers, or school-age child for that matter, who are already dependent on their parents, their caregivers, or teenagers who are dependent, even young adults. So it depends on when the separation occurs and how much impact it will make on the child. The effects of separation is not new. People have studied it and written about it. John Bowlby, for example, is a British psychologist who wrote extensively about maternal deprivation in 1950s while working for World Health Organization. And many others have written about separation or deprivation between child and primary caregiver. So it's not new, but the effects includes effect on the child could include phobia, some of them, some signs of psychological trauma. The child could be anxious, anxiety, aggressions, depression, opposition, aggressive to other kids, like biting them, hitting them, acting out. Delinquency is the word I think John Bowlby used in his report. Some of the signs of separation between children and their primary caregivers. So there could be many more, and each child is different, and you can expect all these consequences to occur in every child, because the consequences obviously depend, like I said, on the age of the child, their understanding, and their resolution, and of course the period of separation between child and caregiver. But these are the possible consequences of separating children from their caregivers. And some of these consequences are lasting. They could last for a long time. Could be permanent if there's no corrective measure done. So what are the corrective measures that could be done to offset some of these consequences of separation between children and the caregivers? The most important thing is to reunite a child with their primary caregiver. Reunite them as soon as possible. Let them come back together as soon as possible. So that is the most important thing. In the absence of that, when that is not possible, to unite the child with a good, loving adult. A good, loving adult. So the loving adult, a surrogate primary caregiver who could play the role of the primary caregiver or the parents. An individual who shows love to the child, who make the child resilient, remedy some of the effects of separation. The earlier a child is reunited with their parents or primary caregiver, the better the outcome. And of course, the earlier a child gets a substitute caregiver, a caring adult, the better. Some of these children will bounce back. They can be resilient. Everybody is different. Every child is different. One child might not suffer as much as the other child based on their genetic predisposition and the presence of a loving adult in their life. To recap, separating children from their primary caregiver could lead to a lot of consequences. Some of the consequences could last for a long time. And like I said, they include aggression, delinquency, anxiety, opposition, acting out, and so on and so forth. And the remedy is to reunite children with their primary caregiver as soon as possible, with their parents as soon as possible, and to never separate parents and children if possible, to never separate them at all. And where that is not possible, to quickly get a child to a loving, caring adult who could play the role of a parent and primary caregiver. Thank you so much. Please share this presentation with your friends and families.